Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space. And as always, I hope that you enjoy. Story number 1. Humans are explosive. Written by numerous Sun 4282. An excerpt from the noted xenobiologist Kakorag Thai's new publication, the newest member of the galactic civilization, Humans of Earth. There are many words that can describe humans. It would be fair to call them stubborn, loud, excited, energetic, strong, foolish. The truth is that humans defy a singular word to describe them. They are too diverse a species to fit into such a tidy summation. At least, that's what I thought after studying them for only a few months. I had the great privilege of visiting their planet of origin, where I bore witness to all manner of their cultural, society, and lifestyles. It was there that I found the single, all-encompassing word that describes humans. Humans are explosive. Yes, you could describe their temperament this way, or their works of art and passion, but that is not how I choose to use this description. I do mean explosive quite literally. Humans have had a fascination with explosion destruction since the earliest days of their civilization. They have harnessed such powers for a multitude of reasons and gone to such ludicrous lengths to indoctrinate explosions into their everyday life. The first example many of my fellow xenobiologists and xenoanthropologists might think of would be fireworks. For those of you who have not had the chance to witness the recordings, I can certainly recommend them. In the great love of explosions, humans have developed a long-practiced art of creating colorful detonations that they launch into the night sky for the sole purpose of excitement. I hold this evidence to be sufficient that humans love explosions, as no other species has ever wielded explosives as a recreational activity. These colorful bursts will deafen many a creature, even humans, if they stand too close. And though the fleeting sight is beautiful, the shrapnel that falls back to their planet poses significant fire and pollution risks. And still, humans mark the full revolution of their planet around their star, as well as some other events, with celebratory explosions. But this alone is not why humans are explosive. Let us next examine how they have come to join us in the galactic neighborhood. It was by trying themselves to the front of explosives and hurtling headlong into space. The means by which they escaped their planet is no more than a prolonged directed explosion. While a citizen of the stars might easily recognize the sharp efficiency of a Sringer ion engine or the grace of a Lothorian light sail, there is no mistaking a human's vessel. In their rush to explore space, they designed a harsh craft that is propelled quite literally by detonating one of the most powerful military bombs they have ever designed behind it and riding the blast like a deranged korikori bird trying to surf a wave of nuclear fallout. And that only touches upon the absolute devotion to detonation that humans have employed in their military campaigns. It was a humbling lesson that the Tritoni soldiers learned when they found themselves on the end of human weaponry in the Human Tritoni War. As a side note, the humans refer to this as simply the Tritoni War because, in their words, they started it. I tried to explain to them that the Galactic Standard Conventions, we named the war first with the victor species, then with the losing species, thinking that it would flatter the victor and make history lessons easier. They laughed and began listing wars with that convention. A frighteningly long one was called the British, American, Russian, French, German, Japanese, Italian War. They claimed the name was not comprehensive of all the parties of the struggle. As the Tritoni discovered, humans did not rely on lesser-based weapons, but instead used kinetic-based projectile weapons propelled by, you guessed it, explosions. Humans had miniaturized the explosives and stuck them into tubes with projectiles in front of them and then detonated them. The resulting explosion would launch the projectile at ludicrous distance at speeds that would highly discourage one from being in their path. Conventional anti-laser armor crumbled under single rounds of the smallest of these projectile weapons, and humans had contrived to create giant versions of these weapons to be mounted on their vehicles that could deliver, by explosion, a projectile that contained an explosive well beyond the horizon with frightening accuracy. But explosives are not solely the military endeavor for humans. Until very recently, the average civilian in one of the developed regions of their planets would employ the use of an explosive chamber for locomotion. The device, called the internal combustion engine, would work by creating a series of explosions in a small tube that would compress the piston and turn a central axle. Yes, even the name is horrifying. These heavy hunks of metal would be mounted mere feet from the operator and would achieve explosive rates in thousands per minute. Yes, several thousand explosions per minute. Thankfully, humans have become more aware of the impact of the explosion fetish and have taken strides to reduce their use. Their current ground vehicles employ electric motors, and their latest spacefaring vessels have begun to employ other technologies. I wish to say that these methods of transport were new to the humans, but they had already researched solar sails and ion engines and had considered them less viable than blowing up the back of their own vessel in the name of speed. And another thing to add to the lengthy list that humans have exploded, they have most certainly blown my mind. End of story. Story number 2. Rebirth, written by British Tea Company. Passing its millionth orbit around the ruins of the Ringworld, the piece of rubble continued its daily routine as it flew again in the quiet of space, still bearing the proud letters Savior. From the former bulkhead of the once mighty warship remained in its squalid existence, accompanied by countless other pieces of loose engineering as it slept in the darkness of space. 600,000 years ago, a mighty war had been fought in the Centauri system when the human empire erupted into a violent war of succession. Two brothers battled against one another, vying for the laurel of lordship over the galaxy. When the dust settled, and when the last shots had been fired, there was victory for no one. Only the last breaths of a dying world, the silent screams of broken ships, and the simultaneous eruptions of thousands of stars. 600,000 years later, the galaxy's wounds slowly healed, but the sheer extent of destruction which had occurred was a testament to the ancient human depth of ambition and exactly what they would do to achieve said ambitions. The Void Quadrant, almost a 1/4 of the entire galaxy, was thousands upon thousands of light years of shattered planets, dead stars, and broken marvels of technology and engineering. Yet, here, even from the grave, the humans were still the bane of the living. The Void Quadrant was a death sentence to anything short of a military expedition force, even after the death of their masters. Many automated human AIs still operated. It was well known that one of the great crises faced by the galaxy at one point had been an entire fleet of automated battleships from the human empire awoke from their slumber, carving widespread destruction throughout their wake. Several species perished in that war alone. One major discovery found in the aftermath was that the human automated war machines were programmed to eradicate all sentient non-human life. Given the ruthlessness that they must have showed to each other in their civil war, such a discovery surprised no one. For the last 600,000 years, only the brave and the bold dared to trespass into the Void Quadrant, lest the slumbering children of humanity would awaken. Recently, disturbing reports have begun to surface as the galaxy grew more and more anxious. Unconfirmed but credible sources had begun to say that many graveyards had begun to feature activity. Drones and automated warships were visiting their fallen brethren. Today, the Savior's bulkhead would be interrupted in its daily orbitals around the ruin of the Ringworld. A little repair drone had floated by it, hooking it and dragging it along. Where to? The bulkhead wouldn't know until it felt the familiar feeling of the rest of its body. Piece by piece, the broken form of the mighty dreadnought was put together again as the repair drones diligently worked their way through. The onboard AI awakened once more. While not quite the peak efficiency without a human crew, the dreadnought would still follow its orders dutifully. The small amount of sentience it possessed would react in surprise as it found an order in its data log only weeks old. Like a dutiful hound to its master, the vessel's newly repaired engines warmed up and made haste to a new destination. Since the time of its master's passing, the galaxy had grown unclean. Normally, it would be like a ravenous wolf ready to tear at the throats of these unwanted guests. Today, it went like a happy puppy back to a familiar place. By the time it arrived, the system was already filled with tens of thousands of human vessels, all of which had been instructed to return here. Their masters were alive, and they would be seeing them all very soon. End of story. The algorithm reckons you should be watching this video next, and I recommend that you should be always watching my video. So, click with energy! And yes, clicking that does help the channel. Thank you very much. I just want to give a quick thanks to the Tier 5 patrons and channel members. Alithia, Barky, Fudic Yol, Cam Maxwell, Caspar Onholtz, White Van 420, Lord Asrakal, Arcadian, and Oakfield.